3 years ago, I slept with my new coworker. So any questions? My new boss asked me, once she was finished explaining to me everything about my new job as a barista. I was excited to work with her in this place. No, everything's fine, I answered truthfully. I have had experience working on a similar job before, so I was confident I would be fine. Alright, in a little bit the other barista, Jake, will arrive, so don't worry, you won't be alone on your first day for long, she said before having an apologetic smile on her face. I immediately had a bad feeling in my stomach. I didn't like people named Jake. It reminded me of a jerk, specifically the guy I lost my V card to. He was a random person I met at a party. Thinking we had a beautiful connection, I left with him. The next morning, he handed me his phone number written on a piece of paper, and of course, I was over the moon thinking he was the one. Sadly, I realized who he was when I found out he had given me a fake number. If he wasn't feeling me, he should have just rejected me. Giving me a false hope was messed up for him. I struggled so much to get over it. I couldn't let it affect my life still. I quickly forced my mind to stop thinking about him. You can rely on him, Meredith, the boss said. As I was nodding, a guy came through the door. He was short and brunette. He looked really fit and maybe around my age. Oh, hey Marcus, she said to the guy before also introducing me. Lucas, this is going to be one of your coworkers. I'm the cashier, nice to meet you, Marcus offered me his hand. The boss's phone rang and she quickly apologized and told Marcus to look after me before going to her office. There was a moment of silence. I was never good at starting small talk, so I just walked towards the espresso machine. Marcus followed shortly after me. So, new guy, have you met Jake, the other barista? I shook my head. He is the best, he sighed as he was dreaming. Handsome, smart, and funny. I chuckled at his forwardness. Are you dating him? I asked, feeling curious about this man. I wish, he answered as he bit his lip. There is a no dating rule here. Between you and me, I would so drop this place for that man. I laughed at that crazy statement. I didn't think I would ever do that for someone. This man must be hot. The cafe shop door opened and I looked up expecting a client. I was ready to welcome them in. Jake, Marcus called excitedly, almost running towards that man. My mouth fell open when I saw who it was. It really was Jake, but not any Jake. It was my Jake, the jerk I had my first time with 3 years ago. A lot of repressed memories filled my brain about that night and how magical it felt, how we connected beautifully, or that was what I thought until he gave me a fake number the morning after. So when I saw him, my whole body had a reaction. Chills and panic ran through me. In a heartbeat, I turned around, giving them my back, holding the gasp that wanted to escape my mouth. Let me introduce you to the new barista, Marcus said as I heard them walk towards me. There was no way out of this one. Be cool, I told myself several times like a mantra. I let out a shaky breath. While I tried to pull on my best poker face, I turned back around with my heart beating hard against my chest. I'm Lucas, the new barista. Nice to meet you. I introduced myself, stretching out my hand. I saw Jake's deep blue eyes open wide. Several emotions crossed through his face. Shock, confusion, disbelief. For a second, I thought I saw something else along the lines of panic and maybe a little sadness, but I told myself that couldn't be right. After all, he couldn't care enough about me to give me his real number 3 years ago. Why would he care about me now? He shook my hand, and maybe it was my imagination, but it felt like he wasn't willing to let go so easily. Yeah, I know. I'm Jake, remember? He offered me a charming smile. The same damn one he did for 3 years that made me fall for him. But not again. I was not going to fall for the same trick twice. Oh, so you two know each other? Marcus asked, suspiciously pouting at both of us. I pretended to think for a second. I can't remember. Sorry. Walking away was my next move, but he immediately stood in front of me. With his height and build, he was like a wall to me. He appeared unmovable. "No way," he said, and looked at me as if I was crazy. "We met at a party like 3 years ago." I shook my head, trying my best to look clueless. "I went to a lot of parties. But this one was special, though." Jake took a step closer, and I fought the urge to step back. I wasn't going to be intimidated by him. I had too much pride. "We had a lot of fun." My mouth opened when I heard him whisper that last bit. So shameless. How could I have slept with someone like that? "Well, I had fun with lots of people. It's difficult to remember," I replied just to spite him. I was expecting maybe a laugh or an annoyed look on his face, but instead, he went silent. He bit his lip and looked down for a second. If I didn't know how he was, I would think he was hurt. But that was unthinkable. And even if he was, I shouldn't be feeling bad. He was not a good person. He was someone who pretended to like people just to use them. "I get it now," he said quietly before turning away. He started cleaning, showing me he was done with the conversation. Marcus stared at me for a second. His eyes no longer looked welcoming and friendly. Instead, they were full of suspicion and disdain. I thought it was my imagination until the more time I spent, the more I realized maybe this animosity was real. Hours went by and things were fine with Jake. He dropped our last argument and he was behaving professionally. He was constantly asking if I needed help with anything. I was surprised he was capable of making me feel somewhat comfortable, but Marcus was another story. He began giving me the cold shoulder and ignoring my presence the most he could. The constant rolling of his eyes was not subtle at all. It was crazy how his attitude changed toward me. But I decided to ignore it. I didn't want any drama. Plus, I ended up liking working there. The pay was really good, the hours fitted perfectly in my schedule, and the boss was kind and understanding. This was the perfect place, and a rude coworker was a small thing compared to all the perks. I was surprised that this stranger was causing me more problems than Jake. "So, how did you feel on your first day?" Jake asked me when we were cleaning everything before closing the cafe shop for the day. "Good," is the only thing I answered. Even though he was nice the whole day, I still didn't want to be friends with this guy. "I'm glad. Actually, I'm really happy you're here. I haven't been able to be here as much as I have to be, so it's great we have another barista." I didn't answer, but he continued talking about a lot of things. The cafe shop, his life, Marcus, and the boss. Strangely, it wasn't annoying. I hated how nice it was to hear his voice, how he rambled on his own and even made himself chuckle. That's actually what caught my attention when we first met, how chatty he was. The night 3 years ago, he talked to me about his family, his friends, his hobbies, and how he wanted to be a doctor in the future. He hadn't changed that much in that aspect, and probably that's the only thing that stayed the same for him. Physically speaking, he looked so different. He had grown a beard, his hair was longer, he was taller and definitely fitter. I looked away when I noticed I was staring a little too much at his body. "So anyways, because I've been busy with university, I won't be able to be here as much," Jake said, and that caught my attention. "Med school, I guessed?" He stayed quiet for a second, and he had a strange look on his face and a spark in his eyes like he had realized something interesting. "Yeah, med school." He had a big smile on his face. "That's funny." I thought that was strange. "What is it?" "That you know that about me, even though I hadn't mentioned it yet." A quiet gasp left my mouth. I wanted to give a quick excuse, but I had nothing. I felt my cheeks blush, so I looked at the floor in an attempt to conceal it. "But hey, it must have been a lucky guess, right?" His hand grabbed my face gently for a second so our eyes could meet. He smoothly winked at me before his fingers left my chin. I gulped and I stepped back. So quickly I lost my balance. He chuckled at that, and he continued cleaning. That didn't affect me. I repeated myself multiple times that night, even though I felt my heart beating like crazy. 2 weeks later. As the days turned into weeks, I settled into my new job and my activities. The more time I spent there, the more I loved working at the cafe shop. Everything was amazing, except for maybe my coworkers. Both of them were annoying and exasperating in different ways. Marcus was acting like he had a personal issue with me, like he couldn't stand my very presence. I soon realized that his bad attitude increased whenever he saw me interact with Jake. What's worse is that I wasn't even interested in being friends with Jake. Actually, I was actively trying to avoid him. After my first day here, Jake constantly mentioned and even teased me about our past together. Every single day, he found a new way to get under my skin. After my slip up, I didn't see any point in keeping up my lie, but still, I didn't entertain his insanity. Most of the time, it was him doing the talking and me ignoring him. I couldn't even be mad at him, because he was always perfectly doing his job. He was always focused and prioritized it, even more than annoying me. So, of course, the most dangerous moment of the day for me was closing time, when all the clients, Marcus, and the boss were gone. Those last 30 minutes, we were always alone, and that's when Jake didn't know boundaries or limits. So, what have you been up to? Did you continue doing music? Jake asked as soon as Marcus left. I huffed, refusing again to answer like I always did when he mentioned anything from conversations we had that night 3 years ago. Why are you being like this? He dropped the rag he was cleaning with and stood right in front of me, with a hand on his hip. He looked like he was done with me. Good, because I had been feeling that way since I arrived here. I think I'm acting pretty normal. I crossed my arms and looked him in his eyes defiantly. I wasn't going to be intimidated by our height difference, considering everything that transpired between us and how you behaved. He looked at me in disbelief. How do I behave? I've been nothing but nice to you, trying to be friends with you, but you keep being terrible. You are as terrible now as you were then. Me? Terrible? I pointed at myself and then at him, digging my finger on his chest. You are the one who was awful back then, and now when we see each other again, you act as if nothing happened. Sorry if I'm not interested in your games. I was awful back then? In what way? He looked genuinely confused. Because I thought you had a great time. You were pretty vocal about it that night. I felt my cheeks get hotter. Well, yeah, I did. Until you gave me a fake number, of course. That wasn't fun anymore. Instead of him denying it like I expected, he looked at me in shock and confusion. He even had to step back, and both of his hands went to his head. What? Oh, please, no need to pretend. I'm not pretending. I swear to you, I don't know what you are talking about. I never gave you a fake number, he promised. He grabbed my hand and put it against his chest like he was making an oath. He then proceeded to recite his phone number as if it was proof of his honesty. I lightly pushed him off. Before looking through my phone, I was embarrassed that I had kept that number and I've never erased it. And then I noticed it. I covered my mouth feeling stupid. Jake snatched the phone from my hand and then laughed in disbelief. This last number here, it's not a 7. It's supposed to be a 1. I typed it wrong. The statement finally settled in, like a drop in my stomach. All this frustration and anger all these years was for nothing. You typed it wrong, he repeated, still laughing. I'm glad. I looked at him as if he lost his mind. How? Because all this time I thought you were not interested enough to give me a call, so I'm happy that wasn't the case. He was right. That wasn't the case. But I couldn't say it out loud. Hey, he called for my attention. He held both my hands gently and squeezed them. I know all of this is crazy, but can we forget of all of this and start again as friends? I would like that very much. I let out a pained smile. Friends, he said. 1 week later. After that, Jake and I were attached by the hip, always finding ways to be next to each other, even when we were working. Of course, this brought terrible looks from Marcus, but I was already used to them, so I didn't care much. Jake's friendship was worth it because that was all that was going on between us, nothing else. Of course, my eyes always looked for him only to find him already watching me, and sure, Maybe his hands were constantly trying to find ways to touch mine, but this was normal between friends. Totally. You know what? I'm really happy that we can talk like this, Jake said once we were again alone one night when we were closing up the shop. I was nervous when I saw you again. You were? A smile appeared on my face. That made my heart swell. Yeah, believe it or not, that night was a big deal to me, he said, suddenly looking shy. He took a second, and he was contemplating what to say next. I knew I was gay even then, but I was in the closet, too afraid to do anything with anyone. His eyes found mine, like he was trying to see if I was understanding where all this was going. That was my first time with anyone, he finally confirmed my suspicions. All this time I was under the impression that he was a player, but it was endearing to think we were each other's first. I couldn't stop my feet from walking closer to him or my hands from grabbing the front of his shirt. My eyes were focused on only one thing, his lips. To my surprise, Jake stopped me and pushed me away from him. Embarrassment and disappointment filled my body. What was I doing? My clumsy mouth tried to apologize. Don't apologize. Look. His finger pointed towards a corner in the ceiling. There's a camera. I looked at him confused. There's a no dating rule? He reminded me, and the relief I felt in that moment was pure bliss. He rejected me because of that stupid rule and not because he was not interested. There was hope. Let's finish here. And we did that. We quickly finished cleaning and we closed the door of the cafe. My hand was still turning the key when a pair of hands pulled me from the waist. Jake dragged me for a couple of steps before he strongly but gently put me against a wall. He cupped my face and rested his forehead against mine. I wanted to do this since your first day here, Jake whispered before his lips kissed mine. That night, I pulled Jake into my car, expecting to hook up with him from the get-go, but instead, we somehow ended up chatting for hours, exchanging gentle and innocent kisses from time to time. We talked about our lives and how much that night and its aftermath changed us. I was surprised how we both went through the same thing. Fate was cruel to us, but we already had each other again. 2 weeks later, Jake and I decided to keep seeing each other, but in secret. So that's how we ended up pretending we were friends in front of people at work, but whenever we could, we looked for alone corners to make out and hug each other, and today was not the exception. We were talking and I complimented how pretty his hair looked today, and that was enough to make Jake pull me into the bathroom. He kissed me roughly after closing the door. Maybe it was all the hiding, but the intense adrenaline was making me melt. Stop doing this, he whispered heavily against my lips. I'm not doing anything, it's you. You are though, you always are, ever since we first met. Even though he didn't explain himself and sounded almost incoherent, I knew what he meant, because it was the same for me. Jake's existence alone was enough to make my world spin. 30 minutes later. What are you doing, Jake? Marcus talked to Jake and immediately latched onto his arm. I bit my lip, ignoring the strange feeling staring into my stomach. I hated jealousy. Nothing much. Jake's eyes looked for mine, probably trying to apologize, and I offered him a smile because I wasn't blaming him at all. Doing another batch of coffee. You are the best barista I know, Marcus said, and I could see Jake trying to shake his arm off. Sure. He didn't even offer a fake smile, and I felt so much satisfaction. I'm going to take the trash out. Excuse me. So, Jake and you are together? Marcus asked as soon as Jake left. Wow, straight to the point. What are you talking about? Of course we are not. We're just friends, I lied, putting my best performance. That's interesting, he chuckled before crossing his arms. Because I didn't know friends kissed like you guys do. My breath stopped. He saw us. I didn't even know when or where, but he saw us. Shh, be quiet. I looked around trying to see if the boss was around. I sighed in relief when I noticed we were completely alone. Oh, you want me to be quiet? There's only one way for me to do that, though. Stop seeing Jake. What? No. Okay, fine. He gave me a fake smile before walking towards the boss's office. He was about to knock when I pulled him with all my strength. "Why are you doing this? You are such a jerk. I can't lose my job." "You are the jerk. You are the one who went after him even though I had told you I was interested in him, so don't play the victim card with me." I bit my tongue to stop myself from explaining to him all the history Jake and I had because it was pointless. I could see his eyes full of hate. I knew nothing that I could say would make it better for him. He wanted my head on a spike. "Fine, I'll do whatever you say, but don't talk to the boss," I pleaded. Jake walked back into the shop and Marcus quickly whispered in my ear, "Don't tell him anything about this." I hated him so much. Jake looked between Marcus and me, probably sensing our uncomfortable atmosphere. "Is everything good?" "Yeah, perfect," Marcus said with a big smile on his face. He was the worst. Jake got closer to me after my silence and discreetly tried to grab my hand. I saw Marcus staring and pulled my hand back. "Let's just work," I said, trying to smile, but I couldn't. A week later, I did my best to avoid Jake, especially when we were working, or when we were in front of Marcus. I felt like I had to tell him about what was going on, regardless of Marcus's threats, but I didn't know how to. I was not going to stop seeing him. That was just impossible, but I didn't want to lose my job either. Also, the extreme guilt I was carrying with me was almost impossible. I knew how much Jake loved this place, and I didn't want him to lose it because of me. I was aware of the no dating rule, and I still made a move on him, and now I was here reaping the consequences of my actions. Because of all this, I ended up also avoiding him when we were alone or after work. He noticed that shift in my behavior, and he tried to talk with me several times, but I always found an excuse to not do it. But I knew it wouldn't work forever. "Well, see you later," I awkwardly said before trying to run away to my car. No, not this again," Jake grabbed my hand, stopping me. "You are not going anywhere." "What do you mean? I told you I need to go home because of my parents." I started, but my voice lost its force mid-sentence. I saw Jake shaking his head, and I knew that I couldn't keep lying anymore. "What's going on? Please talk to me." He almost begged, and I felt terrible. "Sorry. I'm sorry about everything," I apologized. Both of my hands covered my face. "What do you mean? Sorry about what?" A shaky sigh came out of my mouth. I was glad I finally explained what Marcus had said to me, the threats and the blackmail. I was relieved I could say it without crying because, believe me, I was so close. Everything was too much, even more overwhelming now when I talked about it. Jake hugged me and ruffled my hair until my breathing calmed down. "Don't worry, alright?" Jake rubbed my back slowly and he kissed the top of my head. "We will figure it out, you and me together." "I don't know how to. Either we stop seeing each other or we will both get fired." "Listen, after we first met, I wanted you to call me so badly. I had to wait 3 years for this, for you. So that one is not an option." "Me too. I couldn't stop thinking about you," I confessed. A defeated sigh escaped my lips. "So, we are getting fired?" "I'll think of something, don't worry." "You will?" "Yeah, trust me, okay? We will be fine." "Fine. I trust you." I grabbed his face and kissed him, after missing his lips for so long. The next day. Last night, Jake cuddled me in my car for a long time. We missed being together, kissing, talking. He promised me multiple times that we would be fine, and I believed it. I felt energized, like I could do anything thanks to Jake's words. As soon as I walked into the coffee shop, my instincts told me something was off. Maybe it was Marcus's evil expression, or maybe because the boss was standing at the front, instead of being in her office. She looked concerned, like she was waiting for someone. For me. Immediately, I knew. "Why?" I asked Marcus. I sounded pathetic because of the anxious feeling in my belly. "Jake texted me last night. I guess we both have a loose tongue." What a jerk. I wanted to smack that smirk off his face. "Lucas, to my office, please," my boss said to me. I followed her until we were alone. She closed the door and looked at me with a sad expression. She probably was having a hard time too. I'm guessing you already know what this is about, she started. She pulled from her pocket a printed sheet and then handed it to me. It was a picture from the CCTV of when I tried to kiss Jake. From that angle, it looked like we were actually kissing. Not that it made any difference, so that was how Marcus found out about Jake and me. What a creep. This kind of behavior is not accepted in this establishment. You are a talented and great barista, but I can't have this happening. I'm so sorry. I'm guessing this is it for me here, right? Yeah, it is. It's fine, I understand. You have rules and I broke them. But can I ask you something? She nodded. Please, just fire me and let Jake keep working here. This is all my fault, not Jake's. I was the one who started all this. We will see. I will talk to him as soon as he arrives, but don't worry, I think it'll be fine. Okay, I think. I was interrupted by a loud thud outside the office. Meredith looked at me in panic for a second before we both ran outside. I wasn't prepared for what we found. Jake had Marcus by the collar of his shirt, almost shaking him. I had never seen such anger on Jake's face. Marcus looked terrified. You are going to regret doing this, he threatened Marcus. He wasn't even raising his voice, but still was enough to be intimidating. Oh my, Jake, stop that immediately, Meredith ordered him, and he listened. Let's go talk, Jake. Follow me. It's okay, Lucas. Don't worry. Wait for me. He whispered when he walked next to me. He subtly squeezed my hand. I nodded. When he left, I gave my meanest glare to Marcus. He only rolled his eyes like he didn't care, but he wasn't fooling anyone. He looked pretty shaken up. I decided to wait outside the shop. I refused to spend a second longer sharing the same air as that awful guy. I couldn't see his face without wanting to finish what Jake started earlier. 30 minutes later. Hey, Jake said to me as soon as he walked out. His arms wrapped around me and I felt a gentle kiss on the side of my face. You okay? Yeah, I'm fired, but I'm okay. What about you? What did she tell you? Well, I explained to her everything and guess what? You are not fired anymore. That surprised me. That wasn't the news I was expecting. How? The only thing we did wrong was date as coworkers, right? So as long as only one of us is not working here anymore, we are fine. I felt the color drain from my face. No, please don't say that you got yourself fired in my place. It's fine. I was already thinking about quitting actually. I can't keep doing this in med school. Doing both is killing me, so this is perfect, okay? Don't feel bad. I looked through the window and I saw Meredith and Marcus talking. I had a sour taste in my mouth. I don't think I want to work here, not with that guy. I don't think he is going to be a problem for longer. Jake showed me his trademark cheeky smile like he did something mischievous. I showed Meredith all the inappropriate text messages and pictures he had sent me ever since he started working here. She was livid. Jake! I gasped, surprised by his mastermind plan. I looked at them again. Marcus looked distressed and panicked, almost screaming. I wanted to feel bad, but I didn't have compassion after what he had done to us. The karma was too good. You are amazing, I told him. Instead of answering, he gave me a small kiss on the cheek before proceeding to kiss the rest of my face. I couldn't help when a giggle escaped. Finally, you cracked a smile. I rolled my eyes. I wanted to kiss him, so I did. I was so used to hiding our relationship at the coffee shop that doing that in front of the people felt like a rush, like when you do something forbidden. I opened my eyes a little and, indeed, Marcus was staring. He was fuming. Good. Want to go on our first official date? Jake asked me out after he explained to me that Meredith decided to close for the day due to all the drama. Previously, we had been so cautious about people finding out about us that we decided not to go on public dates. Now, that decision seems silly. It felt so liberating just walking around holding hands, as we were doing now. I would love to. Sushi? I know it's your favorite. I blushed at that. I loved when he remembered things I had told him 3 years ago. It made me feel so special and seen. I pulled him by his shirt to kiss him passionately. First, hotel. Food, after. I felt his smile against my lips. Oh, please. That day, we relived all the hot magic we felt 3 years ago. Even though we were older and more experienced, it still felt like we were the same two nervous boys we once were. But this time, at least we knew each other's feelings. After that, Jake and I continued to date and we were happily in love. I was even thinking about proposing, but I decided to wait for Jake to graduate med school. Jake was doing amazing at school. He was now at the top of his class. I was so proud of him. On the other side, I was still working at the coffee shop and I loved it. Meredith eventually gave me more responsibilities and I helped manage the store. Ever since Meredith fired Marcus, there had been zero dramas. Everything always ran smoothly and I was intending to keep it that way. Jake was always my best supporter in this, visiting me there every day. I was glad I reunited with him after 3 years. He was my first, and he will be my last and my forever. The end. What do you think of workplace relationships? Thanks for watching. Consider subscribing to become part of our Rainbow Force, and stay wholesome.